Hi, my name is Sarah Boone. I'm the Home at Last case manager for Permanent Supportive Housing, as well as the outreach coordinator for Harrison County. I want to talk about my friend today that I miss dearly. He passed away about a year ago now. He wrote a letter, and I want to read the letter and kind of talk about that. It says, "I'm very fortunate that Jesus Christ threw out his net and caught me, this misguided, troubled fish, and reeled me in. I could have turned out much worse. I'm thinking this while me and my current running buddy are splitting a bottle of cooking wine. This bench is where we spend most of our time wondering where we'll get money for our next bottle. Lucky for us, you can buy cooking wine with food stamps. That's a little known secret with the homeless, but an alcoholic survival net. I'm thinking this when my friend is telling me he's too proud to panhandle. Because of his pride, we're sitting on a bench drinking wine, and he wants to talk about pride. What the hell is there to be proud of? Welcome to the wayside where you fell or were shoved in." I think I met a couple years ago. I met my friend a few years ago on a bench, basically deteriorating. He was a very hard core alcoholic for many years. He had been an alcoholic. He'd been homeless for quite a while. He had lost his truck, which is where he was sleeping. So we would often find him on the benches. He used to have a camp behind Back Bay several years ago. So when we were housing him to pass away. He was literally at the point of dying when we met him. So we thought, well, this will be a humane way for him to pass. But to our surprise, he actually went and got sober and clean, went to a rehab. When he got out of rehab, we were there with an apartment waiting for him. We had an aftercare specialist that would come and meet with him weekly that Back Bay provided for him, where he could continue his ongoing therapy and rehabilitation. And he was housed with us for about 4 years in total before he passed away. But at one point he came to me and said, "You've done so much for me. I want to give back to others." So he asked if he could come start doing outreach with me in the woods. We would visit camps. He would come to Open Doors Homeless Coalition homeless meetings and speak as an advocate for the homeless from a homeless perspective. He reached people I couldn't reach because they knew him. I can understand and empathize with homelessness, but I can't really understand homelessness because I've never been homeless. So he had a unique perspective when I would bring him out to meet with people. Unfortunately, he was diagnosed with cancer, and it was fast. I remember him sitting in my car, and he told me, "Sarah, I think something's wrong with my tongue. It hurts and I can't eat." And he had lost a lot of weight and he was looking really sickly. And I said, "So did you go to the doctor?" And he had Medicaid because he received Social Security. He got about $750 a month, which is about average for what our homeless population receives in their Social Security benefits. And so he goes to a healthcare provider in town. They told him he had herpes on his tongue. He was misdiagnosed for 8 months. They put him on herpes medication. I looked at his tongue. It was wearing away on one side and white, and it didn't look like herpes to me. So I said, "I think this is an emergency. We need to have your tongue looked at again." We got him to a different specialist. They said, "We're going to send you to a cancer treatment center in Pascagoula. I want you to have this looked at. We're going to do some CAT scans and some other things." So I picked him up. Put him in my car. We put on Meatloaf because that was our thing. We would listen to Meatloaf and sing off key, and he would laugh at me. And we drove to Pascagoula because no buses run to Pascagoula. There's a cancer center, but there's no transportation to the cancer center. So I would pick him up. We would drive there early in the morning. I'd sit in the parking lot while he got his CAT scans. We had to go back 2 days later. They said, "We need to see you." So I think we kind of both knew it was not going to be good news. So I said, I'm going to go with you. I'll take you. So we go in there and we sit there. And you watch somebody be told that they're going to have their tongue cut off and their teeth pulled out and their neck cut from throat to throat to remove the lymph nodes. And he was told he had a rare form of tongue cancer, that he would lose all of his tongue, and that they would have to rebuild his tongue from a part of his leg, grafting from his leg, because he had been in a fire, which is how he ended up as an alcoholic. He had been in a fire earlier on in his life, and he had burns over 80% of his body. So they had already done skin grafts, so they couldn't use any of that skin area. So the only place he had left was in his groin, and they would remove blood vessels, and they would try to rebuild at least his tongue base. And I remember thinking, what do you say to somebody who has nobody while they're going through this? I'm going to be there. I love you. I care about you. And I gave him a hug. I remember he laughed because he said, I'm not going to have a tongue. And I said, well, they can always sew you on a cat one. And we kind of made a joke about it. He's like, no, I want a cow tongue. So we get home and they tell us we have to come back in and we have to meet all these specialists and all these places to decide a treatment. They have some rare specialist that's here on the Gulf Coast that Kiesler borrows out that knows how to do this specific kind of surgery. So he has appointments in the evening. I go and get him after work. I take him, I sit with him, I hold his hand. We have these conversations. And then the system failed him. He filed for retirement because he reached the age of 62. So his income went up $150 a month. He lost his insurance because you're no longer eligible for it after you make a certain amount of money. For him to have any of these surgeries, you have to have insurance because who's going to pay for it with private doctors? While we were waiting and fighting the fight to get him Medicare, we were still seeing all these specialists that were also trying to reinstate his medical insurance to try and find a solution for this man because he was literally could not eat and was dying. I remember dropping him off at his house, and it was right before Thanksgiving, and he said, I don't want to cry. He said, I'm really tired. And I said, that's okay because I'm going to fight for you when you're tired. I'm not going to cry. And he got out of my car, and I said, I love you. And he said, I love you too. I carried up his Insure, because Back Bay bought him Insure, because Insure is very, very expensive. And it's like one of the few things he could eat. I said, I'll help you carry this upstairs. So I carried it upstairs. I said, I'll see you after break. And I went home, and I had another client that was passing away in a hospital. And I was out there sitting with him when he was passing, and I would call, and I would call my client, my friend, and he would he didn't answer the phone, which was unlike him, and he didn't return my phone calls. And I went to his apartment, and I knocked, and he didn't answer. So I got the maintenance man to come open the door for me. And Laz had unfortunately passed away in his apartment 4 days earlier. Sorry. I miss my friend. I miss having somebody to sing Meatloaf songs with, and I miss having my friend. And, if the services had been faster, if, they hadn't kicked him off his insurance, if, there's a lot of ifs, there's a lot of gaps, there's a lot of places that people failed him. And then to die alone in your apartment, and nobody cared, and nobody knew, and he didn't have anybody. He didn't have anybody that was checking on him. He didn't have anybody to bury him. He's buried in an unmarked plot where the indigent go. But we want to keep his memory alive at Back Bay, so he had books. We donated his books to the day. He was an avid reader. And he would write in his books about the nature of duality. He would write little notes in his books about the duality of nature, cultured people, and pseudosciences. These people that live on the streets have thoughts and feelings of their own. They're not rejects. They're not just people to be forgot about. The dual nature of loneliness. This was him. So we donated all his books. We donated all the things in his apartment back to the homeless. This was his watch. I used to make fun of him all the time because he would always wear this silly looking watch. So we try to remember him in a sweet way, the ways he reached people that we couldn't reach, the ways he gave back when he got healthy. We talk about his story to remind people that There are services that need to be provided to our homeless community and the housed community. He was housed, but when you're housed, you're often forgot about, right? We've housed you, the problem is over. We've cured homelessness, right? We've created a solution. But then people who have lived on the streets, like many of our clients, for long extended period of times, that have been neglected with health care, neglected with just living on the streets day in and day out, not eating properly, eating out of canned food all the time. We end up getting in them, and they decline in health, sometimes rapidly, sometimes not rapidly, sometimes it's a slow progression. But once they're housed, you find all these new issues that need to be solved. So the need is here, but the resources are here. And how do we reach the aged, the sick, the dying? Who sits with them when they have cancer? Whose obligation is it to hold their hand while they have their teeth pulled out and their tongue cut out? Like I'm willing to take that on, but we need the community to want to take that on. We need people to sit up and not ignore these people. And I miss my friend a lot. I think about him. I ride with his watch in my car, and there were a lot of people that loved him. I know another person who worked with him a lot when he was on the streets has his hat. He wore that hat every day. He wore the same bracelets every day. The things that meant something to him, we all kept a little piece of him with us. And we talk about him and remember him and try to use his story to inspire other people. And that even when they're housed, the work is not done. Sometimes it's just the beginning of the work. And that's my friend. And I hope his story moves you, and I hope it makes you think twice when you see someone on the streets that they're reading Frankenstein and they're writing letters that are welcome to the wayside where you were fell or shoved. People aren't homeless usually by choice. People are homeless by circumstances. He had an alcohol problem, but he had a good reason to have an alcohol problem. The man was burned on 80% of his skin. I cannot imagine the pain he went through. I can't imagine the skin grafts and the surgeries. And at some point you have to cope. And I would rather stop and talk to someone and hear their story and why they are and who they came to be and how did you end up on this bench. And if you just stop and have one conversation and ask them, how did you end up here on this street? Or you're going to find that everybody has a story, and people are generally not homeless just because of poverty and drugs and alcohol. And I just encourage people to listen and to hear and to love people where they're at and give them back a little piece of their humanity. And that's that.